So it is now my great pleasure to introduce Kim Addonizio to you. She recently released a collection of stories called The Palace of Illusions, and it was chosen by Publishers Weekly as one of the top 10 fall literary fiction titles. Acclaimed as well for her poetry and fiction, Kim is no stranger to accolades. Among the many she's earned are fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts, a Pushcart Prize, and the John Ciardi Lifetime Achievement Award. Her poetry collections include Tell Me, a finalist for the National Book Award, What Is This Thing Called Love, Jimmy and Rita, The Philosopher's Club, and Lucifer at the Starlight. I started as a poet, she has reflected, and will always return to poetry, both reading and writing it, for that sense of deep discovery and communion I find there. Kim also wrote the widely praised novels Little Beauties and My Dreams Out in the Street. Andre Dubus III has said of the latter, "It is one of the finest American novels I've read in some time, a night-blooming flower you will not be able to put down." So honestly rendered, you'll wonder, as you turn the last page, why you feel so much hope. We feel so honored to have her, and she's going to read today from The Palace of Illusions. So please give a warm welcome to Kim Addonizio, who will also be signing books behind us after her reading. So thank you.
Thanks, and thank you all for being here. And what a treat to get to hear some poetry first. I'm really unused to reading fiction, so it's really nice to have all the great poetry in the air that preceded this. And I'm going to read one poem because I got a request. You don't often get requests, so someone asked me to read a sonnet, so I'm just going to open with this, and this goes out to Stephen. Stolen Moments. What happened once. So now it's best in memory. An orange he sliced, the skin unbroken, then the knife, the chilled wedge lifted to my mouth, his mouth, the thin membrane between us, the exquisite orange, tongue orange, my nakedness and his, the way he pushed me up against the fridge. Now I get to feel his hands again, the kiss that didn't last, but sent some neural twin flashing wildly through the cortex. Love's merciless, the way it travels in and keeps emitting light. Beside the stove, we ate an orange, and there were purple flowers on the table, and we still had ours. So, I have been writing stories for a while, and it's funny because, you know, sometimes as a writer, you, if you do different genres, or even if you do two different artistic disciplines, sometimes when you're really stuck in one, the other one kind of explodes. So as it happens, I got a fellowship to a castle in Italy to write poetry for 6 weeks, which is a crazy, lucky thing to happen. And of course, when I was there, I couldn't write poems. But what happened is I started writing stories. So this book is partly a result of that sort of wave of story awareness that came to me, and started reading a lot of short stories and writing them. And it's a book that kind of has a lot of different things in it. It kind of, there are some fairy tales that have been invaded and recast, and some more surreal stories, as well as some more realistic ones. And what I'm going to do is read two of the shorter ones, because the long ones just seem too long. When you come from reading a poem and you get to sort of go into that moment and then come back out, it felt like too much to try to just read to you one long story. So I'm going to read two shorter ones. And the first one is called Breathe. Breathe in, the teacher, Roshi, guru, leader, whatever, says. So, okay, so far, so good. Deep breath, hold it, let it out on a long exhale. Amber, my roommate, smiles at me like, isn't this going to be great? Isn't California so cool? And I look back like, yes, it is, even though I don't think so. Already my knees are bothering me from sitting cross-legged. We all take a few more deep, noisy breaths. We're supposed to close our eyes, but I peek around at the class, trying to spot someone cute who might want to talk to me later, until the teacher, woman, enlightened being, bitch, catches me, and her soft, open eyes get hard, and I zip mine closed again. Be still, she tells us, go inward. She has some kind of accent I can't figure out. She sounds a little like that waitress in Montpelier, Vermont, where I spent Christmas with my parents. They didn't want to have Christmas at home in Florida anymore. They said it would be better if we were somewhere with snow. We stayed in a farmhouse and it was really cold. My parents went tropping around through the woods in galoshes and boots and cross-country skis, and I stayed in by the fire under a big quilt, feeling lonely and sad and fat. I felt like a big icicle was dripping inside me without ever melting. So I don't want to go inward. Right now, I want to go home, ignore my freshman comp homework, and curl up on the couch and watch The Tudors, the entire series, for the second time on Showtime on demand. I want broken treaties and assassination plots and girl baby after girl baby being born to King Henry VIII, while he gets more and more desperate for a boy. Watch your thoughts, the teacher says at this point. And I get that, that's easy. I just imagine my TV, a 32-inch flat screen I got from Best Buy. I watch Amber telling me I should do something else besides eat and watch my new TV night and day. And then I watch her fill the fridge in our dorm apartment with probiotic ginseng drinks and baked tofu. And then I rummage around on my own shelf for some sugar cookies I baked and put in there to cool. I hate them warm from the oven. I will eat the dough all day long, though. That's bad, I guess, because raw eggs can infect you with salmonella. But if I die from eating raw cookie dough, I don't think I'll mind. I'll just pitch over in our kitchen with a big smile. So now I'm thinking about death. The death thought looks like a lump of buttery, sugary dough and raisins, and then it looks like a shiny balloon that's starting to crinkle and sag. And then it's a baseball cap, a pink baseball cap just floating in space with no person in it. Then, as I watch, the cap falls sideways into a tunnel like it's being sucked out of my head, and my little sister, Bethany, appears in all her dead glory. Or rather, in the slideshow my parents made of her afterwards, that we all watched projected on our living room wall when we got back from the cemetery. It's mostly pictures of her when she was healthy. There's one of us in our bathing suits at Lake Placid one summer, and another where we're posing with our Easter baskets and bunny ears. There's only one of her from near the end. She's wearing lipstick and blue eyeshadow and that baseball cap on her head, looking like cancer awareness poster girl, a goofy smile on her face, like she didn't throw up the morning our dad took the photo. I don't really want to watch the slideshow in my head, so I open my eyes again, just let them slowly part to tiny slits so the room looks fuzzy. The teacher, woman, skank, catches me again, so I open my eyes all the way and look straight at her and give her a gentle look like I'm all blissed out. And she nods her head at me and closes her own eyes and opens them like it's all good, which it is not, but here we are. I must have given her some signal because she suddenly says, let's all chant some ohms. Everyone tries to hold their ohm longer than anyone else, and some people cheat, taking a second breath, while other people are still letting out the first one. I get my ohms over with as fast as possible. All I want is to get out of here and go home and order a big, gooey sausage, pepperoni, onion pizza from Red Boy and eat the whole thing in front of the TV. Anne Boleyn and Cardinal Wolsey are down with a sweating disease. They're going to recover from that, but they're done for anyway. Wolsey will get arrested for treason and kill himself, and Anne will stand on the scaffolding, bravely addressing the crowd, saying nice things about Henry, who ordered her head cut off. She's going to forgive the black-hooded guy with the sword and kneel down and pray. She'll look up at the sky. Blackbirds will flap around for an instant in the blue. I really want to see that episode again. But the class torture session boredom hour has just begun. With your eyes closed, says our guide, simply watch your breath. She says this looking straight at me, so I have no choice. But how are you supposed to watch your breath? My breath doesn't look like anything. First, I imagine my tongue is a road, and my breath is wind whooshing down from some black space in the back of my head, but I can't really see the wind. All I see is a long road disappearing into the horizon. I make my teeth the mountains and put some tall trees on either side of the road, and I add a river behind the trees on one side, flowing in the same direction as the wind. I see the leaves shaking, and some of them coming free to land on the road, and then a car comes by and runs over the leaves. I see a dragon kite with a long green tail. I see the river flowing into an ocean and waves scrunching up into white foam, then one big wave carrying all the dead kings and queens of England and Wales and Scotland and France and Spain, smashing them on the shore. And there's a sandcastle on the shore that also gets wiped out. The towers turn to wet stumps, and the moat fills with salt water. Soon there's nothing, and then some man's big shoe print appears. Thinking about the ocean makes me have to pee, and I wonder if I'm allowed. Amber is sitting on the cushion next to me. I wonder if I can get away with whispering to her and asking if we can go. Probably not. The room is warming up from all these bodies breathing. Inside my head, I see the space heater glowing in the bedroom Bethany and I used to share. I remember a night I was lying awake in the dark, listening to the little fan in the heater. This was right before she got sick, before we knew how bad it was all going to be. I watched car lights crawling through the window, along the carpet between our beds and up the wall, sliding across our dressers. Bethany was asleep in a pocket of shadow. Her feet stuck out of the covers on the side of the bed. Her feet were all I could really see of her when a car came by and the beams went over them like clear water. And I was kind of hypnotized by how they looked, small and perfect, like an angel's feet might look, or a fairy princess's. She'd been running around all day in a green tutu and a pair of pink and purple wings. I imagined her falling off some glittery cloud to land in our bedroom, her long hair fanned around her face. Then she sighed and shifted, rolled over maybe, and I couldn't see even her feet anymore. I knew she was there, though, right beyond the arc of the car lights. That's what I see now. Our old room and everything that belonged there, Bethany and me and our dressers and the lights of other people going back to their houses at night. I watch my breath fill the room, and I hold my sister inside it as long as I possibly can. And the next one I'm going to read is called The Other Woman. It would end in disaster, everyone said, and everyone was right, but everyone was on the outside of the situation and therefore did not know everything. She was on the inside, living with a man and in love with another woman, loving the man but not being sure anymore she should live with him, loving the extravagant Italian meals he cooked and the way he stood frowning when he painted in the corner of their living room that served as his studio, loving his longish black hair on the nape of his neck. But she also loved the longer black hair of the other woman, and how the other woman would kiss her and then pull back and look at her intently and then kiss her again, laughing. The other woman's mouth was softer than the mouth of the man she lived with, and she could not stop thinking about kissing her. The man she lived with knew that she cared for and admired the other woman, who was older. He admired the other woman as well. She was a well-known artist represented by a prestigious gallery. So far, he had only been in a couple of inconsequential group shows, but the other woman assured him that his work would be appreciated in time. He loved his girlfriend, whom he called his partner. The other woman sometimes stayed over when they all had drunk too much, sleeping in their king-sized bed with them, and though nothing had happened between any of them, though he wasn't positive about what exactly had or hadn't happened on the days the two women went off alone to spend time together, He enjoyed the aura of sexual possibility. He felt as though he had two beautiful women, and when the other woman was around, he felt sexier than he did with his partner, whom he had lived with for nearly 6 years now. The other woman had not been with anyone for a long time and longed for a man to be her partner. Instead, this lovely, sensual younger woman had appeared in her life to confuse and exhilarate her. Every day she listed to herself the reasons why she should not be drawn more closely into this relationship with a young couple. But in the end, those reasons did not seem very important when weighed against her own loneliness. She liked the man very much. He was generous and witty, and he had promise as an artist. She was drawn to him sexually, but the younger woman had declared that she was far too jealous to share the man she lived with. The other woman thought this was wise, because things would likely fall apart very quickly if the three of them were to start up anything in bed. She thought it would be wisest not to sleep in their bed at all, but she lacked the willpower to carry through on this insight. It felt too good to lie between them or on the side next to the wall, to occasionally feel one or the other's arms around her, to wake to the man making coffee and asking if anyone wanted toast, and if so, cream cheese, butter and jam, or just butter. The life the young woman was living with her partner, that had once been so satisfying, had now begun to seem hollow and dull unless the other woman was around. Yet she also felt as though she was betraying her partner every time she felt this, and thought that if the other woman were not around, they might eventually return to their former domestic ease and intimacy. She tried not to call the other woman, but still she thought of her all the time, and in the end would invite her over and feel immediately as though life was interesting again. The three of them played cards or watched movies. They cooked meals together, or he cooked for the women while they cuddled in bed, reading to each other. On weekends, they all sometimes drove upstate for an afternoon to visit antique stores and farmers' markets. At parties, they sprawled comfortably together on their hosts' couches, while everyone speculated about what was going on between them. The other woman was having an affair with the man, or had become a lesbian. After years of painting men, she was now exhibiting female nudes, several of which clearly resembled the younger woman. But the other woman had not become a lesbian and was not having an affair with anyone. It was true that the younger woman had modeled for her, but she had only kissed the younger woman less than a handful of times. She thought she might really like the younger woman as a friend and not a lover, but then again, life was mysterious. Maybe, now that men did not seem as interested as they used to be, it was time to experiment, to explore another aspect of herself. How could she do this with the younger woman, though, without feeling as though she were betraying the friendship of the man? Even if he didn't mind, and she wasn't sure whether he would or would not mind, she would make herself too vulnerable to the woman. Sex always made her vulnerable, and it would not be wise to give her heart to someone who also clearly lived with another person, slept with him every night, and sorted through the bills with him, and discussed who would use the car that day and who would take the train. No, it was impossible to enter into any kind of sexual affair, and she grew jealous that the younger woman had someone, while she had no one, only this halfway and increasing, unsatisfying relationship. The man could not figure out how to make his partner happy. He would come home from work and find her crying or in bed in the middle of the day. Lately, she didn't want to leave the house, and he often ended up having to do the grocery shopping and other errands. He was glad that she had the other woman as a friend to talk to. She called and texted the other woman every day. Whenever she talked to the other woman, her voice grew light and happy, and he felt this was a good sign, and that soon she would shake off whatever was bothering her. Then the other woman had a show in England and went away for several weeks. The man's partner grew more and more withdrawn and often seemed angry at him. She was never in the mood to make love. He worried now that she would fall into the kind of terrible depression she had suffered from around the time they had first met, when he had been married, when the woman who was now his partner had been the other woman. What a mess that had been. Disaster in the end. Eventually, that time had begun to feel like the distant past, as though those miserable, confusing events had happened to other people. All that was over, finished. Although lately, certain memories of his ex-wife had resurfaced. How she had woken him one morning by putting her mouth on him. How she would laugh after accidentally burning dinner or spilling wine on their new sheets, but be upset at mishearing something he said. The time she had slammed a door on him, only to immediately, contritely open it again. The images struck him with surprising clarity and immediacy. At night, he lay in bed with his partner, filled with those images, painful reminders that in spite of his deep love for his wife and his best intentions, he had failed to keep his promises to her. When his partner rolled over in sleep and moved against him, he turned away. And I'm going to end briefly with an opening of another story. And I think actually I don't have time to read a lot of it, so well, we'll see. I don't know. It's a vampire story, so it's a girl who's a half vampire, struggling with the two sides of her nature. So I'll just read you let me see if there's a good place to stop. I'll just, I'll just read for about 5 minutes. How's that? And we'll see where we end up. And thanks to the organizers of this festival, too, and the staff, because I know this is, when anything like this happens, there's a lot of work by a lot of people that, if it goes well, doesn't show. And so I just appreciate all you guys who made this happen, and all you people who came out to hear people read from books, of all things. It's pretty exciting to see the bookstores here, Oh, wow. So this is called Night Owls. Sometimes I like to take off from campus and go downtown to the fancy hotels where they have piano music and the bartenders wear tuxes. I order a lemon drop and read Charlotte Bronte or Jane Austen in the muted bar light, wearing a tasteful black dress, my hair piled demurely on my head, little ringlets escaping down my neck. I wait for a man to come over, which never takes long. But when I get upstairs into a room with him, I change completely. I order him to take his clothes off, to lie down on the bed and close his eyes. They always smile like crazy at that point. They can't believe their luck. I tell him I'm going to make him feel good, and I can see he's thinking about how he'll tell the story the next day to his best friend at work about meeting this girl in the hotel bar. I put my hand on him through his briefs or boxers and remind him to keep his eyes closed. I take out my lace handkerchief and the chloroform, and before he knows what's happening, he's passed out and I'm straddling him, my fangs in his neck, his blood pouring down my throat. The men I meet downtown are perfect, married, a little drunk, a little overweight. It's bad if they're thin because by the time I have my fill, they're practically comatose. I don't want to kill them, just feed on them enough to keep me going. If I were a full vampire, it might be different, but I'm only half on my dad's side. My dad has to kill people to get enough. I understand, I guess, but I don't like to think about it, and I'm happy I never killed anyone. Even the coma thing only happened once. So tonight I'm sitting in a fancy bar off the lobby of the Marriott with my lemon drop, reading Edith Wharton. It's the House of Mirth for English Lit. Lily Bart has just blown her chance to marry the rich but boring Percy Grice. She's supposed to meet him to go to church, but instead she sneaks off with this guy Selden and sits on a bench in the woods with him. It's early in the novel, but I can already tell she's not going to end up with Selden. She likes money too much, and while her heart is with Selden, it's pretty clear he won't be able to afford her. Lily's a creature of comfort, and she can't change. She has to have expensive gowns and lavish dinner parties and Mediterranean vacations. I put the book down on the bar, thinking how sad it is that people can't just follow their hearts. That's when I noticed the guy sitting at the table by the fireplace watching me. He's big and muscular and handsome, his eyes dark as an oil spill. My mouth goes dry and I feel hunger like a scalpel turning and twisting inside me, making my stomach cramp. I stare at the veins in his thick neck. He looks like a bodybuilder, and I wonder if I'll have a problem putting him down. Sometimes figuring out the dose can be tricky. Leave the big ones alone, my dad used to say. I worry about you, he said, on your own in a city so far away. Stick to small animals. You can survive on animal blood. He doesn't know I graduated from dogs and cats, from squirrels and pigeons and chickens when I discovered how good boys tasted. That was right after I discovered that my dad didn't stick to animals either. One night in my senior year of high school, I ran into him. I was coming out of a club, kind of drunk, and there he was in the alley, crouched over a girl. I backed up into the doorway and watched him feeding on her until she lay there drained of life, a sprawled thing in a green dress, not much older than I was. We got in a big fight about it. The next night I went out and fed on my first boy and put him in the ICU for 6 months. I study the guy trying to calculate the dose, and because I've had more to drink than I should and am feeling reckless, I decide it's worth a try. He doesn't come over, just looks at me, and finally I pick up my napkin and drink and book and walk over to him. Mind if I join you? I say. For what, honey? He says, and smirks a little. He runs a hand through his hair, and I see it's ever so slightly thinning on top. A drink, some conversation, some company. Are you old enough for that? He says, indicating my lemon drop. Sure, I lie. I'm 19, but my ID says 23. He looks around quickly and then says in a low voice, how much? He stares at my breasts like he knows what they look like under my clothes. You think I'm a hooker? I say kind of loud. Like I said, I've had a little too much to drink. He looks around again, freaked out now. Hey, he says, hey, keep your voice down. You've got it all wrong. I don't sleep with guys for money. Okay, he says, I've got it all wrong. He's drinking Evian. Maybe he's in training for something. I imagine him naked on the sheets on one of the hotel's king beds, a fat marbled slab of steak on a white platter, dripping with juice. I forgive you. I set down my drink, slip the House of Mirth into my purse, and pull up the heavy upholstered chair. I'm Tiffany. Of course, I'm not going to tell him my real name. My dad named me Bogdana, which is some weird Slavic name. My mom shortened it to Dana, and that's what I've always gone by, a solid, normal American name. Tiffany, he says, a beautiful name for a beautiful girl. Thank you. I give him a tiny smile. I can feel my fangs aching, wanting to come through my gums. In another minute they will. That's how hungry I am. He goes back to staring at my breasts. Does that mean you sleep with guys for no money? He says, because you really are a very sexy girl. Why, thank you, sir, I say, giving it the southern drawl I've been practicing. Sorry we got off on the wrong page there, he says. Page, get it? You were reading a book. Like he's the cleverest thing in the world, stupid pig. I smile at him, slip my stocking foot out of its high heel, and bring it up to rub the inside of his thigh. I think I better stop there. Thanks, guys, for listening.